So welcome everyone. It's really nice to see a lot of faces on the screen and hear a lot of voices and be in touch with people from all around the world. From my perspective, 2 hours further on and more, and also many hours back in the morning for some people and in the early evening for others. It's really great to be able to be together. It's great to have our speaker today, Petr Parshakov, presenting, and a bunch of his colleagues. And I want to spend a moment before, I'm going to hand over to Jorge for a quick message in a moment. But before that, I want to kind of just say that it's great to be able to be together as academics meeting. We're all aware of events, global events that have taken place over the last year and a half. And you know, one of the regulars in these sessions, Alex Krumer, often says, make sport, not war. And so in the spirit of making sport and not war, we can simply leave things at that and think about lots of research on sport and support our colleagues who are affected by the global events over the past year and a half. Before moving on to our seminar, though, I do want to allow Jorge Tovar to spend a few moments talking about an exciting conference that he's organizing in Colombia later in the year.
Thank you, Jim. So yes, I want to invite all of you to apply to the what they call the first Latin American Sports Economics Conference that's going to take place down here in Colombia, and right now in Colombia, in Bogotá, Universidad de Los Andes University, in October 19 and 20. I am really encouraging you to apply or tell your networks to apply. I know Colombia is far away, and I have learned since I launched the call for papers that some of you say it's too far, and it is too far. But we have a very weak peso currency, so it's very cheap for you guys, most of you guys. So please apply. The deadline for the call for papers is August 28th, just after the European conference, where I hope I will see some of you. And we're going to have as keynote speakers James and Dennis Coates from Maryland, Baltimore. So I see I don't have access to the chat here, but I will email the link now to James, and please put the link in the chat. I hope you apply. Thank you.
Thanks, Jorge. Yep, I will put information in the chat once Peter started his talk. Yeah, please do apply. Obviously, there's one very good keynote speaker going along to that conference, and less said about the other. But Dennis's talk, I'm sure, will be fascinating down in Bogotá in October. So we've got today Petr Parshakov presenting Choking Under Pressure in Online and Live Competitions. And I don't want to take up any more of your time, Peter, so please do go ahead with your talk and share your screen.
Okay, so yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a bit, I don't can you see the presentation?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So and the slides are,
before you start, Peter, if you can close the box that's got at the moment me on it, that'll mean we should, there we go, perfect.
Okay. Right. So some of you have already listened to the presentation of this paper, but I think that most of you not. And we have modified it since our last presentation. So our presentation is, our paper is about choking, and we concentrate on the difference between online and live events. And let's start with the definition. So what is choking? Choking is, according to the pioneering work of Baumeister, performance decrements under circumstances that increase the importance of good or improved performance. And you see below the definition of pressure. So so usually choking under pressure have negative connotation, that you choke under pressure. And in our paper, we test whether this is the same in live and online events. For example, now, since I am always afraid to present, now for sure I feel pressure, so I hope that I will not choke too much under this pressure, but I hope that since the presentation is, we have it online, that will be easier for me. So why choking under pressure is important in itself without online and live stuff? Well, because if that affects performance, that is important. It is important in terms of designing workplaces. It is important in professional sports, and I think that most of the studies, well, maybe not the most, but majority of studies, they utilize sports data in order to test this empirically. And so I think that first 2 points are related more to choking under pressure, and our addition to this topic, the online versus offline stuff, is of course important because of COVID and all that stuff that affected the way we work. So a brief introduction to previous studies. This concept was initially introduced by Baumeister, and in his paper he performed an experiment. Customers in the mall, they were suggested to play a video game, and they perform 25% worse in case of pressure, and pressure was manipulated by the spectators. So if there were spectators, then consequently there is a pressure and you perform worse. In his paper, in his next paper on this topic, he suggested theoretical foundation for this phenomenon, choking under pressure. And there is also a study that is important for our study, because in this it was revealed that the different types of pressure, they affect performance in a different way. So the context, not only the pressure itself is important, but the context of this pressure is also important. I already said that there are a lot of studies that utilize sports data, and here you have a brief review of them. So choking under pressure was tested and found in different individual and team sports. You see it is archery, tennis, golf, biathlon, football, and also the factors that affect the size of this effect were tested. You see papers of Alex Krumer on importance of audience and other papers. So the effect can be different depending on the on other factors. And in all of the studies except for study of Deutscher, to our knowledge, it was concluded that choking under pressure has negative effect on performance. However, in his study, he found that there is a positive effect for pressure in darts, in context of professional darts. In all of the studies, pressure was measured by some feature of the game. So, for example, in darts, it was measured as a situation when the combination of player and his opponent chances to win are close. In archery, it was measured by tie break, and it was also measured in a similar way in tennis. So when doing such studies of choking under pressure, people quite often use sports data, and they use some features of the sports in order to have a nice intuitive example of choking, of a situation when it is obvious that this is a situation of choking under pressure. And we will construct our metric of pressure in a similar way. Yeah, this is just another slide that present our idea, our research question. So we test whether pressure affects performance in esports. In particular, we concentrate on Counter-Strike Global Offensive. And I think that our main contribution is that we test whether this effect is different in live and online competitions. For those of you who don't know what is Counter-Strike, CSGO, it is a shooter game. In Wikipedia, it is defined as a strategic shooting game. It is strategic because there are two teams, and it is not only the game of reaction. It is to a great extent a game of thinking. There are two teams, each consists of 5 players, and they should complete objective of the game, usually to plant a bomb and to explode it, or they can eliminate the enemy team. And the match operates in short rounds. Each round is slightly less than 2 minutes or less. This is how those competitions, the live competitions, top live competitions looks like. You see that they are huge events held in arenas, and there are thousands of people watching it live and online. So it is quite. It is not. It is something which is. So these events, they are quite big events. And if you look at the prize money in CSGO, you see that there was a decrease in COVID times, but the total prize pool of all tournaments per year is about 20 millions now. And 20 millions is, at least was last year, the prize for the winner of UEFA Champions League. So this is just those 2 slides were to convince you that this is a huge industry and it's worth analyzing this. So those incentives in this industry, they are close to real world incentives. They are real world incentives. So they are competing not for toy money. And here is the difference between online and LAN events. So I think that looking at these two pictures, you can you can compare what is the difference between online and LAN event, and it is really very different. In first situation, you are sitting either in your flat or on boot camp, and there is almost nobody in the room. And in case of live event, there are thousands of people, and they are screaming, supporting, and so those two formats of events, they are very different, and we believe that this may affect the size of the choking under pressure effect. Okay, so here is a very short introduction in the mechanic of the game. So one match in CSGO consists of maps. Maps are location where teams are competing, and usually it is played as best of 3. So those who have 1 or 2 maps win the match, and each map consists of rounds. And usually it is each round is slightly less than 2 minutes, and the teams, they are playing maximum 30 rounds. If it is 15-15, so if there is a draw, then there is a overtime. And this is important for us because this is how we construct our metrics of performance. So overtime is for us the signal that this game is a game with where almost equal teams are playing, and overtime is how we define, how we construct our metric of pressure. So if the game is played with overtime, then we believe that was a game with more pressure. And here you see some quotation from professional player interviews that they highlight that the stakes are higher in overtime and the pressure is higher in overtime because you have just 6 rounds and that affects your decisions, and that affects the way you think about this game, and that put pressure on you. Okay, sorry. We have 2 data sets, but and I will introduce them one by one. So our main results, we collected this data set. So we have collected data for 10 years. The start 2012 was the year when this game was published, this latest version was introduced. We have player map observations. So one game is usually consists of a couple of maps. We have player map level of data. We have about 3,000 players. Each team consists of 5 players, and we have rating. Rating is a metric. It is commonly accepted metric of player performance in Counter-Strike. The higher the rating is, the better the performance is. So a rating of 1.5 is better than a rating of 1.0. And it is a metric that combines different performance indicators like kills per round, survived rounds, and so-called kill to death ratio, and so on. Here you see some summary statistics. Well, first, the average rating is about 1, but varies a lot from 0 to 3. We also have some statistics here for dummies. We have dummy for so-called big event. Big event is an event, it is the classification that is commonly accepted in this CSGO community. Big event is an event with prize pool higher than $200,000. As you see about, you see the share of maps of observation played in overtime, and it is about 10%. And the majority of games in our data set, they were played online. Below, on the bottom of the slide, you see some cross tables, and if you look at them, if you compare mean rating, once again, rating is a metric of performance, then you see that if you compare the regular games, then the rating is more or less the same in live and online events. However, in overtime games with overtime, then their rating for live competition is lower than in online competition. So lower rating means worse performance. So in this table, we see that that in online events performance is better in case of overtime. And this difference, it is statistically significant, and that is that was for us an indicator that maybe there is there are some interesting results here. And on the right panel, you see number of observations here, and well, it varies from cell to cell, but we have quite a lot of observation in each combination of live versus online and regular and overtime. So yeah, this is the model, the regression equation of the model that we are estimating. And basically we have 2 main dummies. First is overtime, second is online. We have an interaction of them, and we are interested in this this coefficient for this interaction. And we control for player, for year, we control for map, we control for the opponent team effect. And so since we were presenting this quite a lot, I think that from each presentation, we include some control that was suggested after the presentation. So as you see from this table, that we have 7 models here with different set of controls and different subsamples. The main result, not the main result, we have kind of 2 results. The first is that in all the models, I will now speak about the difference between them, but in all models, the coefficient for overtime is statistically significant and negative. That shows that esports athletes or players, they choke under pressure. And as you see that in online events, the interaction of overtime and online is also statistically significant but positive. And the magnitude of the effect is here about like the half of the effect for overtime, or slightly less. So people choke under pressure, but they choke less in online events. So in first model, we have controls just only for player season and map. In second model, we also control for big events. In third model, we include controls for the opponent teams. In fourth model, here we also test if overtime play different role for big events and not. Yes, and it actually is. So in case of big events in overtime, the effect of overtime is even higher. In our fifth model, we were told that since teams they are usually play different number of maps per day, they might just tire from the competition, and that's why we introduced number of maps played in the day as control. But surprisingly, here we have positive coefficients, so the more you play during the day, the better you play. So maybe this is not an effect of being tired, but like you kind of in a good condition to play if you play a lot. And in sixth model, we exclude those players that played only in online events. So we keep only those players who played both online and live events during a season. So we exclude only online players in order to test if our results are driven by them. But it's not, so the effect is slightly less, but the main pattern is the same. And in our last model, we exclude these online players, and also we exclude COVID, because COVID may be some very well during COVID, all events, the best events, the major events, big events, and all other events, they were all online. They were held all online. So we decided to test also if our results are not driven by COVID, and it's not. So far we have, with this data set, we have this result that esports players, they choke under pressure, but less in online, and the size, the decrease of performance is from model to model, it varies from 0.02 to 0.03. And it doesn't look that huge. However, if you look at the rating of players that is usually made by the end of the season, you see that the difference between first and second and third is exactly 0.02. So that 0.02 is actually a huge difference. It can be a difference between winning a major event or be the first or the second player. So this difference is not only statistically significant, it is economically significant. Next, we decided that we want to understand what is the mechanism why this happened, and we collected other data set. We have so previously we had map level data, and each map consists of rounds. So now we have collected huge data set on round level unit of observation. And here I want to highlight the benefits of using esports data. You know that I like it. In esports, particularly in CSGO, you can just go and download so-called game demo. And in this game demo, you have basically an information that of what each player do, and this information is updated 24 times per second. So you have extensive data set, and you don't need to pay for this data. You just need to go and download it, and yeah. So we have collected this data. Unfortunately, we have collected lesser sample of this data just because there is too much of the data that can be handled by our server. But still, we have collected information for 70 teams for 7 years, and we have concentrated here on 2 indicators. After speaking with gamers, after reading the interviews, the first is headshot percentage. That is basically the percentage of time you kill your enemy by hitting his head. It is important because professional gamers, they always try to do these headshots because that is the fastest way of eliminating your enemy. And that is treated as an indicator of individual performance, of your individual skill or individual performance. And in this game, you can also damage your teammates, and of course, you don't want to do it. So we use this teammate damage as a metric of team coordination. So if team coordinating its activities, then there should be 0 teammate damage. And if there is teammate damage, then probably there is some miscommunication. Right. So we have collected this. So this sample is slightly different. So they intersect with the previous one, but the previous was more extensive. And we have we have evaluated headshot percentage according to the formula on the bottom of the slide. We just slightly modify it by adding 1 to the in order to have some metric for the station. Then there is 0 total kills. And you see also the cross table of of the share of live and online, and the share of overtime games, overtime observation in live and online event is, well, it is more or less the same. You see that the proportion is more or less the same. Initially, we had continuous indicator of teammate damage, but we end up with doing dummy, because here the difference between 0 and even 10 is huge, and the difference between 10 or 50 is not that huge. So finally we end up with binary indicator of if there was a significant teammate damage, and by significant we selected 20, but that threshold doesn't affect the results. So we estimate 2 models. The first is regression, the other is logistic regression, and the specification is more or less the same. Just the unit of observation here is different. Previously it was map, and now it is round. And we control for yes. Now we have control for the row. I will not go deeper for now in this, but we control for in-game resources, for money, for equipment, and so on. Because with this more extensive data, we can do it, and we control for tournament stage. So we control for quite a lot of things. And here you see the results that we have. Well, first is that in overtime games there is less headshot percentage. So in terms of individual skill, players perform worse. And there is more teammate damage. There is more probability to have teammate damage. So that once again proves that there is choking under pressure. So individually on average, players are worse and team coordination is worse. However, if we look at the results for the interaction of online and overtime, then the coefficient for headshot percentage is not statistically significant. So as we put it, you cannot say that you play that online versus offline affects your individual skill, your headshot percentage. However, what is interesting, in online events, you see that this interaction on the right is statistically significant and negative. So I actually have less teammate damage, less probability to have teammate damage. So so it is interesting. So we interpret this as follows: that in case of pressure, your online your individual skills, they are not affected, but the coordination of team, they suffer in case of pressure, but they suffer less in case of online events. So it is easier for you to coordinate probably when you are sitting in the same room rather than when you are sitting on the same stage in front of thousands of attendees. Yeah, and this is, I think that I have just told exactly the same results. That so in short, what we have found: first, players choke under pressure. They choke less in online events, and according to our results and its interpretation, they choke because of the coordination rather than because of individual skill decrement. And that's all. Thank you very much for attention.
Great. Thank you very much, Peter. Do we have any questions and comments? We've got some Teams applause, so I'll just also give you some applause. There we go.
Should I close the presentation? Or?
You might want to refer to it with some of the questions, perhaps, so it might be worth just leaving it up for now. Daniele's got his hand up.
Yes, hi, very interesting presentation. I have to admit, I do not know very much about this game and this sport, I guess. So maybe my question is, doesn't make much sense. But if I understand correctly, this is a game where two teams play against each other. So I am trying to shoot my opponent, and presumably my opponent is trying to avoid being shot by me. And this makes it difficult to define, the hitting percentage as choking, because maybe it's not choking on my part, the shooter, but it's better defensive ability of my opponent. Does that make sense? And so, and I think that this, this applies to some of the studies that you mentioned at the beginning. In tennis, if I win the point, then or if I lose the point, I choked, but then my opponent, played better. And how do we know that, who's choking and who is sort of improving their performance? In other contexts, it's not so clear because, if you're taking darts or, archery, this simultaneous interaction between the two players is not really there. And so if you can say, look, if I hit the center of the archery board, whatever it's called, less often, then I am, sort of, choking. So if you could, speak a little bit to that, and then maybe I have some additional thoughts on how you can sort of address this.
Yeah, thank you. I think that we should explain this in the text. First, it is not like one is trying to shoot and other is trying to escape. Like me and my enemy, we have the same say equipment and in-game equipment, and my enemy is trying to shoot me at the same time. So it is not like I mean I don't think that there is defensive ability here in terms of in terms of avoid shooting in the head. So you can choose your position in order not to be shot, but I don't think that you can do something in order to prevent to be shot in head. So like player, your opponent see you and he's trying to hit your head, but I don't think that you can do something to prevent him from hitting exactly head or other part of this in-game body of the player. But we should for sure explain this in the paper. And I didn't understand the last part, that in so in darts it is not a simultaneous game. Yes, it is sequential, like you are playing and then your opponent is playing, and here we have something different. Am I correct? Was it the point on?
No. So I'm thinking that, in darts or archery, the definition of decrease in performance is, I think, less controversial. But again, I'm not familiar with these games. I imagine that people can sort of duck or dodge or do all these actions that they they can try not to be hit in the head, because if they're hit in the head, they die, right? So and they lose the game. So they but one suggestion. So I think in the tennis paper by Alex, the way that he gets around it is that he basically assigns, look, the action, the person who's taking the action is the server, and the receiver is just kind of a gut, and so he's really looking at sort of choking under pressure of, the person who serves in tennis, right? If the person who serves in tennis wins fewer points, then that's sort of choking, and because the server has this advantage, then that's how is it defined. So maybe there's some analogy in your setting, because I think understand that there is a team that has to plant the bomb and the team that has to sort of prevent planting the bomb, and so maybe you can say something about the comparison between those two those two teams.
Yeah, that's interesting. We have the data. Yeah, that's interesting. I just need to think on this. But yeah, need to think. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Daniele. Any more questions and comments?
Sorry?
I was just seeing if anyone else had any more questions and comments. Okay, I'll ask another relatively naive question as well, which is not to say that Daniele's was naive, but nonetheless, I think that obviously the data setting is fantastic. My only question is, if you're playing a football computer game, say, sometimes you'll go out on the street and kick a football around on a field, but playing a shoot 'em up computer game, it's not. It's a very different setting than any kind of setting in reality. I don't know whether that has any, or might have any kind of effect on the results that you get, and any kind of, I don't know, external type validity you might be able to argue from them. I don't know if you've thought about that.
Yeah. I think that this is the external validity of the findings that are based on esports is quite often a question for me. But I would put it that way, that I believe that the activities, the things that esports athlete is doing during the game are more closer to the actions of I don't know what that even my game. I mean, well, my work, because they are sitting. They are not playing on the field, correct, with the ball. They are sitting on a chair in some office. They are doing work with their laptops, with the keyboard, mouse, and stuff like that. So, to some extent, the external validity of esports findings may be even better than, say, traditional sports findings. But of course, writing program or doing, I don't know, music on computer is completely different stuff to play a shooting game. And so that is something that we need also to concentrate on. I think that we need to show that it is not only a game of shooting, not that much game of shooting, but it is to a great extent the game of thinking, because of how this game is designed. There are different places to plant a bomb, so they have teams, they have different strategies, and they trying to randomize on these strategies. And so, yeah, we should be very, very clear on this. I will thank you, James.
No, I think you're right. I think at the end of the day, it's a game of strategy. I think there's external validity there, and just I think we're capable of abstracting from different scenarios, right, where you've got different objectives, specific objectives in games, and so on. So I think, yeah, absolutely makes a lot of sense. Any more questions and comments? Daniele.
Yeah, so do you have some like ranking of players, like some measure of player and opponent ability? That I wasn't very clear. So you're controlling for opponent fixed effects in some of the specifications. I was just wondering whether the pool of players in the online tournaments is very different from the pool of players in the the live events, and maybe that it's a different set of competitions. So just trying to understand this contrast between the online and live.
It is different. So usually online tournaments, they have much lesser prize pool. So they are tournaments of worse quality. Here we control for opponents by dummies. So because our dependent variable is individual player performance, and they basically include dummies for him and for opponents. Yeah, so we do not include any continuous metric of performance.
Are the teams fixed? Like you said, it's groups of 5 players. They play. It's always the same, teams that play.
They similar to football. They move across teams in mid-season. It is similar to football transfers. Like one team is paying for contract. And going back to the difference between live and online events, it is huge, and that's why we have this specification when we keep only those players that during a season participated in both online and live events. Like to have to exclude those who play usually only online, because they are worse players on average. So we tried to test our findings with this model.
Okay. I mean, ultimately, what you have your regression analysis. Essentially, it's a difference in differences. So you have like an interaction term. So I was wondering whether push even further on like try to make those online versus live as comparable as possible. It's like in a way of maybe doing some sort of matching so that you're really sort of comparing apples and apples.
Yeah, we attempt to do this with COVID because in COVID both, but yeah, well, it's hard to find an exact matching because really all major events are held live, and it's hard to match exactly because if you think about the characteristics of tournaments, you have basically prize pool if it is and location, whether it is online or in particular on a particular city, on a particular continent. And it's hard to, and since prize pools, well, we may have a subsample of tournaments with similar prize pools. So on average, live tournaments, they have significantly higher prizes, but I think that we can create a subsample of comparable live and prize events in order to address your point. And that yeah, we can do that. Thank you.
Anything else, Danielle? You're deep in thought there.
Yeah, I'm making notes.
I might ask you actually, kind of sort of based on that. You're using these overtime games to measure more pressure-laden scenario, but there's 30 rounds before that, and so do you go to overtime if it's 15 each? Is that what happens, or?
Yeah, overtimes are always if it is 15-15, yeah, and yeah, and if it is draw in overtime, it is 18-18, then there are next overtimes and so on until.
Okay. Yeah, all I'm wondering was, presumably you've got what the score is at the time in any of these given rounds, and wouldn't the pressure be high when it's, say, 15-14, the last round of those 30? I don't know whether you thought about those specific rounds, or maybe that reduces the sample, or is that a different kind of pressure to what you're looking at?
Yeah, I think that we tried to do this. I think that we have tried even to make some continuous indicator, so I think that we have somewhere models with 15-14. Maybe we need to include this in the presentation. I don't remember the results though. We tried to do some continuous indicator, but then we thought that, for example, in situation when it is 15 or 14 to say, or 15 to 5, that here there may be pressure on even, I don't know where the pressure is higher, because when you are losing and it is 5-15, you have maybe zero pressure. But if you're playing 15 and you cannot run the last round, then you also feel some pressure because you understand that the situation is very favorable in favor of your winning. Yeah. So yeah, and regarding this, when it is close to overtime, the score is close to overtime, we have these results. Yeah. Thank you.
Any more questions and comments? Okay, the silence suggests perhaps not, in which case we can wrap up. Thank you very much, Peter, for a really interesting talk. Never had the idea that you could play computer games in front of massive crowds in stadiums. So that's a really interesting insight and some really interesting results. So thank you very much, Petr, and your co-authors for a really interesting piece of work. We are going to have a week off next week. So there's no talk next week on July 14th, and we're going to return on July the 21st when Katrien Scharfenkamp from Bielefeld University is going to present on expected and perceived media presence of men and women researchers in sport. So we will conclude for this week. Thank you again, Petr and co-authors. Thank you everyone for your contributions. I'll conclude by saying have a great weekend. And in the words of our colleague Alex Creamer, make sport not war. Look forward to seeing you all very soon in person.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Petr.
Bye, everyone.